Please, thank you. Are you all okay there at the back while we're still waiting? Are you all okay? How are you? Good. We're still waiting. Sebentar ya. Nunggu dulu. This is the changing world of work. Selamat pagi. Are you doing the international program?
Maybe when we wait, would there be any, what do you call it? A trend maybe in terms of knowledge in RMIT that people very keen to pursue, especially in the area of maybe management skill, the hard skill, which is maybe the management and leadership, perhaps, or strategy that you want to share before maybe.
Yeah. Okay. So while we're still waiting, I will probably talk a little bit in terms of the present situation and the future situation. So we are planning to sign an agreement with BINUS in terms of three majors. One is the business and technology, which is very much in line with BINUS digital business. The other one is global business that I'm managing at the moment. So it's very similar to your international business as well. So I'm teaching one of the courses in there, which is cross-cultural management. It is very, very important in the Australian context. Hopefully you have an opportunity to come to Australia, but Hardy knows about this. Australia is a multicultural society. So it's a very diverse society. We have people from all over the place, from Indonesia. In fact, in Melbourne, it's probably the highest concentration of Indonesians in Melbourne, particularly with RMIT right bang in the city center. Lots of Indonesians there. And with that diversity, obviously it creates a sort of rich experiences, right? But at the same time, there are also a lot of conflict and misunderstanding between the cultures. And we see this not only in our sort of classes, in the classrooms, but also in the society as well. So that sort of tolerance, that sort of understanding is increasingly important in today's society like Australia, where a lot of cultures merge together. The other one that we are looking at is marketing major. Obviously, with marketing, there's a lot of social media coming into place. RMIT is the only university in Australia that has partnered with Apple and Adobe. So we are building not only the skills of our students in terms of Adobe skills and Apple coding, if you want to, obviously focus in that sort of a coding area, but also
Apple Academy here.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we have.
Okay, fantastic. So we have the Apple Foundations program. Yeah. And it's also building the skills of us, of the staff members as well, to understand, that the world is changing. So we need to upgrade in terms of our skills. So that continuous learning is really, really important. Now, I probably would like to say in terms of the changes that we are experiencing, a lot of I did my undergraduate degree 30 years ago. So it's, the time when we had blackboard and chalks, different type of chalks. And I remember my lecturers would just, scribble on the blackboard. I can imagine the pain that he or she was suffering because he was or she was writing on that blackboard. We don't have that anymore. We have this. We don't have to actually, put our hands up and things like that. So the world is changing. We are part of that digital transformation. But at the same time, there's a lot of opportunities for us to upskill ourselves. And I've been telling this not only to my staff, but also my students. There is no limit to your study. Doesn't mean that you finish your undergraduate. There are lots of other students who will be completing undergraduate study. But you have to continue learning, right? And it's not just a piece of paper in terms of the undergraduate degree or master degree or whatever, but in terms of your soft skills as well, right? And this is, you can only develop your skills through learning from the experience that you have, through interacting with others, through coming to sessions like this as well, where you are not only learning from me or Pak Hardi, but you're also learning from each other when they're asking questions. Oh, I haven't really thought about this. You know, there is sort of like a big world out there. It's nowadays I would think it's very scary. I would probably share one of my research projects earlier where we kind of like asked our respondents in terms of the level of anxiety. And what we found is that the younger generation, those who are aged between 18 to 29, are experiencing very high level of anxiety. And we thought that, wow, this is amazing because like we, when we think about the younger generation, oh, they've got a lot of opportunities, they can do whatever that they want, not only in terms of working in the companies, but they could also start the business, everything is sort of easier in a way. But in reality is from the project that we found, or that we did, the reality is many of the younger generation are anxious.
Is that because of mostly young generation using text instead of, personality approach, communications orally, things like that? Would there be any effects because of the particular habits that happen at the moment?
Absolutely correct. So I will touch base in terms of that a little bit in my presentation later today. With technologies, with the digital systems, yes, they are improving our lives in terms of increasing efficiency, effectiveness, convenience even, but it also reduces our ability to interact with others. And we kind of feel that we are lonely, we're isolated because of the advancement of technology. So on the hand, it's fantastic that we have got all these technologies that you don't need to scribble on the blackboard anymore, but at the same time, there is a downside to it. And we see this in the younger generation.
Yeah, I see in the family as well, mother's mother and also the kids, even though they are staying in the same rooms, they are texting each other. We just, how come they're not talking
exactly.
each other?
That's so used to it.
Yeah, get used to it. Yeah, I mean, that's very interesting. But anyway, having coming back the screen at the moment.
Yes.
You want to proceed?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Do you have a clicker? It's probably easier if I put. Thank you. Oh, yes. Thank you very much. All right. So I think technical difficulties already sorted. Yes, thank you. Thank you for working behind the scene. Now, okay, as I said earlier, I am talking about the leadership lessons in the changing world of work. The world of work obviously has changed quite tremendously because of the pandemic. It changes the way we live. It changes our mindset. It changes the workplace culture. I don't know whether you have heard of this term here. Sorry, there is a, okay. If you could minimize the, yes. There is this term here. I don't know how many of you have heard of this term, quiet quitting or quiet quit. How many of you have heard of this term? Nobody. This is a term that is currently dominating social media. And it was introduced by a 20-something-year-old employee who uploaded a video. Basically, he narrated a 17-second video telling the whole world, millions of people, of the idea of putting in the bare minimum in your job and only doing the hours that you are expected to do and you are paid to do. No more than that. So there is nothing about, yes, please, I would like to do this. Nothing. There is nothing about volunteering, doing more, delivering more than they're expected to do. There's nothing of these things. We have this term called the hustle culture or the hustle mentality, where people are trying to do much more to impress the boss. Sometimes it happens in the workplaces. Because of the pandemic, not many of us are willing to do that. No more helping the bosses. No more of giving in more than what I'm paid to do or what am I expected to do. That's a term of quiet quitting. Putting in the bare minimum in your job and only doing the hours that you are expected to do and you are paid to do. The reason of quiet quitting is because of the pandemic. And because of the pandemic, it increases the level of burnout. It increases the level of stress, mental health concerns in many workplaces around the world. In fact, in Australia, the Australian government spent a lot of money, billions of dollars, to tackle the mental health concerns and challenges in the workplace. Now, there's this study here that was published in the Harvard Business Review. This is a ABDC. We have the journal system in Australia called the ABDC, Australian Business Deans Council, and they have A star, A, B, C, D. All right, so I don't publish in D, I don't publish in C. Sometimes I publish in B, but most of the time in A star and A. So this is an Harvard Business Review, which is an ABDCA journal. Now, what they found, so this is like the ranking of the journals. The higher the rankings, so obviously the more reputable the journal is. Now, what they found, they wanted to look at the respondents in terms of their general well-being and the workplace well-being. What they found was that 85%, where's the, here, 85% of the respondents basically said that there was a decline in the general well-being. And the major factor of this decline was actually the decline in their mental health. Again, as I said, a lot of people are experiencing a lot of stress because of the pandemic. The same thing when they were asked about the workplace well-being. 89% of the respondents basically said that their workplace well-being had declined. And the major factor of that, there was an increase in job demands, where the bosses, the companies expect you to do more and more. So I'm feeling a little bit stressed out. And they also struggle with losing the connection with people. And therefore, their workplace well-being declined. There's also another study here by Gallup. Now, Gallup is an organization that does this every single year. They call it the state of the global workforce. If you see at the end there, 2001, the results actually published in 2022. So this is the latest result. The level of stress that the global workforce is experiencing is at all-time high. Very, very high. 44% of the respondents are saying that they're feeling really stressed out. And that is even higher than the period of 2008, 2009, when we experienced the global financial crisis. I don't know whether you remember this global financial crisis. The whole world was affected. A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people lost their incomes. A lot of people lost their livelihoods. A lot of people were under stress. And despite that, the level of stress was only 31%. Now with the pandemic, the level of stress went up significantly. Okay, so that illustrates the burnout that we are experiencing. The feeling of, I am giving up with my work. It's enough for me. So there is nothing wrong with employees rejecting the idea that work should be the core focus of their life. There is nothing wrong with employees resisting more hours that they need to do. There is nothing wrong with employees basically saying no to more work. It's enough for me. So, but there are different types of quiet quitters. What I'm saying here is there's nothing wrong with quietly quitting, because there's a lot of things that are put on you, but there are different types of quiet quitters. When I'm talking about quiet quitters, I'm not talking about the first one there, about those who are only doing what they're expected to do, which is bare minimum, exactly what the quiet quitting definition implies. But they are quiet quitting because they want to exploit the lack of managerial oversight. We know that this happens in the workplace. Sometimes we have this saying, when the cat is away, the mice start to play. When the boss is not around, you do something else. You probably do your shopping, watch movies, do your laundry. There are people who are doing this. They're quietly quitting, okay? But I'm not talking about that. When I'm talking about quiet quitting, I'm talking about those who are consciously reprioritizing their goals in order to prevent burnout. Perhaps before the pandemic, everything that they did was about work. Anything and everything was about work. I was one of them. Every waking moment was about work. And during the pandemic, I realized work is just one part of me. I was separated from my family. We lived in different parts of Australia. I lived in the eastern part. My family lived in the western part. Normally, I could go back and forth, and likewise, my family could also go back and forth. But because of the pandemic, the territory of my family lives in Western Australia. Western Australia, the whole Western Australia was blocked. It's the same country, but that territory, the state was blocked. So I could not get in to Western Australia, and my family could not get out, because once they get out, they cannot come back in. Can you imagine this? It was horrible. It was a horrible experience. Now, I realized at that time, work is only just one part of me. So I refocused, reprioritized my priorities as well. I'm talking about quiet quitters, about those who are feeling the overwhelmed, the sense of being underpaid or even undervalued. I'm talking about people who probably find no purpose or meaning in their job. There are lots of people, surprisingly, that are only doing the job for the sake of getting money, salary at the end of the monthly period. In Indonesia, I think most of the organizations pay you every month. Is that correct? Every month? In Australia, most of the organizations pay you every 2 weeks. This is what we call a fortnightly payment. But there are many, many people who only do the job for the sake of getting the income, the salary at the end of the fortnightly period or the monthly period. There's no sort of psychological attachment to the job. Okay. There are also people who are feeling bored and feeling frustrated, and therefore they are quietly quitting, putting in the bare minimum in their job. I'm talking about those who lost the motivation through the absence or the lack of connection. So there are different types of quiet quitters here. My focus of quiet quitting is the people who are passionate, who are motivated at one point in time, but they lost their passion. They lost their motivation. They feel bored. They feel overwhelmed. They feel frustrated. They lost a sense of purpose and meaning. And we have a problem when our most loyal, most dedicated, most committed, motivated employees suddenly lost their passion and motivation. Now, if you think about it, the term quiet quitting might be new, but the core idea of quiet quitting is not new. It's everything to do with employee engagement. Employee engagement. And we know that many organizations have conducted surveys after surveys about employee engagement. I've worked in many universities in Australia and also different parts of the world as well. I've worked in public sector organization and private sector organization. So I did my sort of industry experience for nearly 12 years before I started doing my PhD. So I started my PhD quite late in my career. Now, I realized that when I see around in the workplaces, not many actually are quite engaged in their job, despite the fact that many organizations are putting in a lot of resources to measure and evaluate their employee engagement. Despite the fact that there's so many studies that have looked at employee engagement, the reality is not many are actively engaged in their job. The study here highlights that only 21% of the global workforce are engaged in their work, which means that 80% of the global workforce are not engaged, which is really, really high statistics. 80% of us, when we are working, we are not engaged. That's really alarming. Now, when we think about quiet quitting or quiet quitters, the first thing that the managers think about is that the employees are lazy. You're not really committed in your job. You are not really motivated in giving more. You are bad employees. But the finding here, the research finding highlights that it's not necessarily about bad employees. It's about bad bosses. There are lots of bad bosses out there. Lots of them. And the study here backed it up. So they collected the data from 28,000 managers and their direct reports as well. And they categorized these managers according to the ranking, the effectiveness, okay? If you look at the bottom there, those managers were rated as least effective, those 1% to the 9th percentile of managers. They have a lot of their employees. I can't, there's, the thing is not working, so I can't really, oh, there you go. There you go. So at the lowest, the level here, the least effective managers, they have employees who are quietly quitting, 14% of them. If you compare that to the most effective managers, the 90th to 100th percentile of managers, they had employees, direct reports who are quietly quitting as well, but 3%, only 3%. So in other words, the least effective managers have about 4 times or 5 times as many employees that they have who are quietly quitting in comparison to the most effective managers. And the study does not stop there. For the least effective managers, yes, I do have direct reports who are quietly quitting. I do have my direct reports who are inspired, willing to give more at the end here, but the majority of my direct reports are here in the middle. So they're not directly quietly quitting, but they're also not inspired to give more. If you compare that to the top, the most effective managers. Yes, I do have my direct reports who are quietly quitting, 3% of them. Yes, I do have my direct reports that are neutral, not quietly quitting, but not inspired to give more. But the majority of my direct reports are at the end, the right-hand side there, are willing to take on additional duties, are willing to support the boss, to support the team, to support the organization. This is the power of leadership. Leadership has a possibility to reduce people, employees, to quietly quit, at the same time increases the possibility of people increasing the inspiration, the motivation. It's the power of leadership. Now, this is the same one here. There's another study here from another organization. So they collected the data, not from different organizations, from the same organization. We're talking about the same organization. The respondents come from the same company. They're exposed to the same pay system. They have the same benefits. They have the same culture. Everything is the same. But obviously, they report to different leaders. And again, they rated the effectiveness of the leaders. Those who are at the bottom there, the first, they basically create dissatisfaction. Look at that. The level of satisfaction, engagement, commitment is only about 20%. Not good. Those managers who are okay, we call these an okay managers, they're good managers, the level of satisfaction that they are causing, influencing their employees is about 50%. In other words, they only have mediocre impact, not good enough. But the most effective leaders, those who are 90th to 100th percentile, they actually make a difference. Look at the level of satisfaction and commitment. 80%. Leadership has a power to make a difference, in your company. And as I said earlier, there are lots of bad bosses out there. Now, so I'm talking about the different types of leadership here, but I want to focus much more on the lessons for leaders to engage talent, to make sure that they don't quietly quit in a changing world of work. Okay, so we talked about the changing world of work in terms of quietly quitting. A lot of people are experiencing a lot of stress. Now, I think this is probably quite straightforward here. We talk about treating other people as human beings. And as human beings, you want to be treated with care. You want to be treated with love. You want to be treated with respect, right? But at the same time, many organizations are built like machines. There are inputs, there are outputs, there are systems, there are KPIs, key performance indicators. And key performance indicators are used to design, to create outcomes after outcomes. But in the pursuit of these outcomes, many people forget the needs, the experiences, the feelings of the people behind those outcomes. It's because everything is about the quantitative impact of your work. They neglect the qualitative side of building relationship with others. Okay, so I am focusing on humanizing work, making work as humanly as possible. There are different ways to do this, but I want to focus on a couple of different things. Now, there is this book here by Matthew Lieberman that I find it very fascinating. And the book talks about social. And this is about why our brains are wired to connect socially. So if you put babies together, babies don't know each other, like they are in their own little world. But when you put babies together, they start blabbering around in the baby language. Because why? Because since young, our brains are wired to connect. And you take away this connection, we don't function anymore as human beings. And that's exactly what happened during the pandemic. Melbourne is actually, Pak Hardy maybe remember this, during the pandemic, we were not allowed to get out of the house. The perimeter was about 1.5 kilometers, and you are only constrained to 1 hour to get out just to breathe in the fresh air, and then you have to come back in. Melbourne is actually probably the worst affected cities on the planet in terms of that segregation, in terms of isolation as well. So you can imagine we are born to actually connect, but you take away this connection, you create a sense of isolation. People start to rebel. So we actually suffer when our social bonds are threatened. Human feelings and connections get lost because of the pandemic. There's very limited sharing of stories and experiences. There's very limited informal catch-ups that we did before the pandemic. It's gone. Everything is gone. It takes a lot of work from both parts of the party, from the employees, from you, the students, to engage, come back to campus and engage back, not only with your peers, but also with your lecturers. But it also takes a lot of efforts on the part of the lecturers, on the part of the leaders as well, to re-engage back with the employees, with the students. And that's exactly what we are doing. It's very difficult to get students in Australia to come back to campus because they are, happy with their sort of a remote work. They can do whatever they want. And then now we are forcing them to come back. So you can see that there's a little difference in terms of the attitudes. Now, so there are different ways of connections. I want to talk about the first one here, the purpose and the meaning in your job. Leaders have the role and responsibility to actually connect with the employees to help them find the purpose and the meaning in your job. And this is exactly what you have to do as well. What is the purpose and meaning in your life? Why are you here? Why are you studying? You got to ask this yourself. I did ask this to my students. Somebody forced you to be here? No. Why? That sense of why, you always have to question, why am I here? Why am I doing this? What can I learn from being here, for example? So that purpose, the meaning, drives everything that you do. But you sometimes lost this sense of purpose and meaning in the things that we do. Okay, so it is the role of the leaders to recreate that sense of purpose and meaning in their job. Now, it's a little bit, yeah, okay. So there's this story here, the story of President John F. Kennedy, JFK. And he visited the headquarters of NASA for the first time in 1961. So he was touring the facility and he was introducing himself. And there was this man who happened to be the janitor, so person who actually cleaned up the headquarters. And President Kennedy said, how are you, blah, blah, blah. And he introduced himself and he asked the man a question, what is your job? Rather than responding that he's the janitor, he actually responded this, I am helping put a man on the moon. I'm helping to put a man on the moon. He realized the vision, the mission of NASA to put the first man on the moon. He realized his part in making this from happening to happen, right? So he's actually part of the bigger picture, much, much bigger than himself. That is the purpose and the meaning in your job. Now, there's this framework here. This one is my research study, which we can talk about a little bit later as well. But I wanted to look at the job design and the effectiveness of job design. What I found very quickly here, what I found is that employees are very creative and innovative in their work when the job actually gives them the sense of purpose and meaning. Okay, so this one here is a framework that we always use when we talk about job design. Some of you might be familiar with this if you are studying management per se. This is the SMART framework. It stands for, S stands for stimulating, M stands for mastery, A stands for agency, R stands for relational, and T stands for tolerable. So stimulating is when you actually find you are able to experience a lot of different things, a lot of different tasks that you can do, a lot of different skills. I love my job as a lecturer because I'm able to experience a lot of different skills, not only in terms of communication skills, not only in terms of presentation skills, it's also about teamwork skills. I'm not working alone. I'm part of the team. So I need to build my teamwork skills as well. I need to build my critical analytical skills as well, because I need to do research as well. So you're building all these skills as part of your study as well, right? So if your job actually provides you with an opportunity to experience a lot of different skills, a lot of different tasks, it's much more likely that you experience and find the purpose and meaning in your job. The other thing about S is about task significance. Task significance, this one here, is about the impact that you are making from your job. Now, I'll probably tell you a little story here. This story happened many, many, many years ago, but a story that I still remember up until today as if like it happened yesterday. This is a story of a student of mine who happened to be in my classroom a couple of years ago, many years ago. Now, you probably can see me. I am an educator who makes sure that every students listen. Okay, so I can't really do it right now. But in the classroom, I would expect every students to actually engage in the classroom. So it's not just me talking. I would expect you to listen, to understand, reflect, and answer. And that is an answer that you do as part of a teamwork, also answering to me as well. So it's a lot of active engagement in the class. It's a very, very collaborative classroom in all my classes, except this one time. There was this one student was a guy, a young boy, who happened to be in the classroom in that course, in that particular semester, just sitting at the corner, just in the world of his own. He was so disengaged, sometimes borderline rude, and he was not committed. His teams actually asked him, team members, sorry, asked him, have you done this? He's like, no. His response was only one word kind of response. Yes, no, maybe. Right? And I approached him every single week when he was there in the classroom. How are you? Blah, blah, blah. So he said, okay. Yeah, it's very, very disengaged. And without fail, I don't know why I did this, but without fail, I did tell him, if you have any questions, any concerns, any issues with regards to this course, come and see me. If you don't want to see me during the classroom, because obviously, we've got a lot of things to cover in the class, I have my consultation hour. If you find my consultation hour not convenient for you, make an appointment. I'm more than willing, more than happy to have a conversation with you. And he said, okay. He never did. Okay, so totally disengaged up until probably week 10. So in the university where I was working at that time, operated based on a 13-week semester. I don't know how many weeks are you studying here? How many weeks in a semester for a course? Do you do a week basis? No? A month basis? Don't know. Okay, so anyway, doesn't matter. We operated based on the 13-week semester. So, sorry, but similar. Okay, so 13 weeks. So in that sort of 10 week, towards the end of the class, he dropped me an email and said, Yuli, can I meet up with you? I am not sure about my final assessment 3, for example. Sure, come and talk to me and come to my office and discuss. So he came in, which was very surprising. He came in and he talked to me about the assessment. I guided him, make sure that he was on the right track, blah, 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 blah. Towards the end of the session, and I didn't realize that this happened, towards the end of the session, he opened up to me and he started talking and telling me about his life. I did not expect this at all, about his life. And I can tell you, I have never, ever heard such a sad story from someone. It's real life sad story. Obviously, I can't tell you what that is, but it was so emotional. He was so emotional when he actually talked about it. I was also emotional when I was actually listening to it. I couldn't do anything. What I was doing at that time was just to listen to him, just give him the listening ear. So at the end of the conversation, I said, I'm not a trained psychologist. Thank you very much for sharing your experience with me, but I'm not a trained psychologist. But I will find you the number of the university support services, because university has a lot of services for the students. I will find you the number of the university support service. Please contact the university support service. And I did that pretty much every week, which he did. Good on him. They actually did. At the end, final sort of a week of the classroom. By the way, he failed the class because he didn't do the first 2 assessment. The last assignment was not very well done as well. I kind of probably suspected that as well. But in the end, the final week of the class, he approached me, shook my hand, and I say, thank you. Thank you for reaching out to me when nobody else did. Thank you for reaching out to me when nobody else did. Now, I've never thought about this before, but it certainly created an impact on him. Now, several months have passed, probably about a year has passed, and I happened to teach the same course again. So when I teach a course, I normally would come in about 15, 20 minutes prior to the start of the course, make sure that everything was set up properly before the students come in. So I did not expect anybody to be in the classroom. The minute I opened the door, I saw this boy smiling, beaming widely, and say, "Hello, do you remember me?" And it sort of dawned on me that that was the same boy that I taught several months back, about a year ago. So we had a chat, blah, blah, blah. I can tell you the semester was the best semester, one of the best semester that I have ever experienced. That boy totally was a different person, from totally disengaged, not committed, not motivated, sometimes sort of borderline being rude as well, to somebody who was so engaged, so good in the things that he did. He was actually able to present well. He was so confident, 180 degrees difference. Okay. And I was like, wow, really impressed, not only in terms of his quality, but also the quality of the other students as part of the student cohort. So the semester went by very, very quickly. Now, at the end of the semester, the final week of the semester, again, he came to me and shook my hand and said, "Yuli, thank you for believing in me. One day, I would write a book, and in that book, I would write about you." I thought myself, oh my gosh, that is a little bit creepy. But I know exactly what he was trying to say. It was a sweet gesture. That is task significance, the impact that you are making in the lives of others. Sometimes you don't realize this. Okay, it's not something that you do it on purpose, but it just happens. But the things that you do also makes a difference on other people. And that's why I love my job as a lecturer, not only in terms of imparting the knowledge to people, to students, but also sharing the experiences as well. That's stimulating. The next one is about mastery. You are able to find the purpose and meaning from your job if you are able to increase your skills, your competencies, your level of knowledge in the things that you do. You become a master, an expert. If you are an expert, you are a master, it's much more likely for you to find the purpose and meaning in your job. Agency is the third one. This is when you are able to say, "I'm going to do this today." You decide when, where, how to do it. You actually have the autonomy to do it. You become an agent of yourself. If you are an agent of yourself, of your job, it's much more likely that you actually have the purpose and meaning in your job. And studies, many studies have shown that. The T is tolerable, which is the fact that you are able to tolerate, conflict in the workplace, the role conflict, the job demands, the time pressure, and so on. If you're not able to tolerate this, you probably need to think twice about your career or of the job. But if you are able to tolerate this and you are happy with the conflict, you're happy with the demands and the time pressure, then you're much more likely to find the purpose and meaning in the job. And finally is the R, the relational aspect. The relational aspect. As I said earlier, this is about the support from others, support from your bosses. And oftentimes we forget the needs, the feelings, the experiences of our peers. We forget about their R. Okay. Now, this is another project that I'm doing currently. It's called the Australian Workplace Index. So I collected the data from nearly 1,000 respondents. We haven't completed the study as yet, so I will not be able to share all the findings here, but I just want to highlight a couple of things here. The first one is the fact that we found that employees whose supervisor supports them are actually feeling much more enthusiastic and inspired about their job. The feelings of enthusiasm and inspiration is actually below the mean. If they don't have leaders who are actually supporting them, it's about 47%. Those who actually have the leaders who are supporting them, the feeling of enthusiasm and inspiration is above the mean, 79%. So in other words, if you have your bosses who defend you, who support you, who fight for you, your feeling of enthusiasm and inspiration of your work is so much higher. It's about 32% higher than if you have no bosses who support you. Okay. Now, oops, I don't know. Sorry. Okay. So I think it's the cross there. All right, so this is another study here that was done by McKinsey here, a consulting company. They were trying to look at the drivers of job satisfaction. If you look at the middle section there, when people were asked about what are the main factors that increase your job satisfaction, majority of the people said it's the interpersonal relationships, the connections that you have, whether in your home or in your workplace. But when they found out a little bit more, they tried to dig in a little bit more in terms of the drivers of satisfaction of interpersonal relationships at work. What are the main factors? If you look at there, 86% of the respondents basically said that their relationship with the managers makes the difference. The relationship with the managers actually makes or breaks your career. It's actually a major factor of your satisfaction in the workplace. That's probably the battery is a bit weak, maybe. Yes. So the next one, we talked about connecting with employees to build a sense of purpose and meaning in their job. The second one is about connecting with employees to build trust. And we know that in order to have the shared purpose, the shared positive experiences, the shared feelings, everything needs to be underpinned by trust. But trust is very fragile. It's very, very fragile. It's not easy to build, and it's also very easy to actually break it up and repair it again. Now, I love watching basketball. I cannot play basketball. You can probably see me. I don't have the physical stature of a basketball player, but I love watching basketball games. Now, when I talk about trust, I like to use the analogy of basketball game. There is a tactic here that it's called no look pass tactic. That's a picture of, I don't know whether you know this. Whose picture is that? LeBron James. Okay, so you don't play basketball, presumably. All right. So now there is this concept here of no look pass. For no look pass to happen, so it's basically when you pass the ball, but you don't look at your teammate. All right. For the no look pass concept strategy to work, it requires two things. One, it requires the passer, the person who passes the ball, the passer, to throw the ball. And when the ball is thrown, the receiver will fight for the ball and will try his or her best to get the ball. I need to trust, but my team member will fight for the ball. Second, the receiver will also need to trust that the passer will pass on the ball when there is a good opportunity to do that, rather than shooting the ball for himself or herself. Trust needs to go both ways. I need to trust you, and you need to trust me. If I pass on the work to my team member, to my subordinate, to my employee, I need to trust that he or she will do the job to the best of his or her ability. I need to trust that. And at the same time, my employee needs to trust that I'm not passing on the work because I'm lazy, but because I want you to take this as an opportunity to develop yourself. Trust needs to go both ways, okay? Now, reality is the level of trust has dropped significantly. And we talked about this in the past couple of slides as well. This is another study that was done by Gallup. The level of trust, though, in terms of organizations taking care of employees' well-being has dropped significantly. It dropped to 24, very, very low, from a peak of 49 to 24. So it shows that the level of trust in the workplace is really badly affected because of the pandemic, because of the changing world of work. The other one is that there is a study that has highlighted the significant correlation between trust and anxiety. If you don't have trust, you have higher likelihood to feel anxious. If you are anxious, there is higher likelihood for you not to trust others. So a significant correlation there. So in the study that we are doing, it's the Australian Workplace Index study, we wanted to find out who are the people who are experiencing anxiety almost every single day. This is exactly what I said about earlier on, when we were still waiting for these systems to work, all right? What we found was that the 18 to 29-year-old employees were the ones who were experiencing anxiety almost every day. That was at the top there. 29% of them. The older we are, the level of our anxiety that we experience nearly every day dropped. In fact, if you're all aged between 60 to 69, only 5% of the respondents say that they are feeling anxious every single day. I don't know why that is. It's probably the older generation have a better coping mechanisms. I'm not sure, but certainly this study highlights, the finding actually highlights that it's important for the leaders to reach out to the younger generation, to build a sense of connection with the younger generation because they're experiencing a lot of anxiety even on a daily basis. Now, this is another study. I just want to highlight this very quickly here. We want to look at the effect of leadership on the innovative work behavior. And what we found is that, yes, leadership actually plays a very important factor, but without trust that underpins that relationship, it's nothing. You can have transactional leadership, you can have transformational leadership. And for us, we are looking at change-oriented leadership because things need to change right now. It has an impact on employees' attitudes and behaviors, but if there's no trust in the relationship, that effect is going to be negligible. It's going to be minimal. The next one is about the importance of connecting with our employees to empower them and to give them a sense of opportunity to speak up. This is what we call as employee voice. Employee voice is you give an opportunity for employees to speak up. And the employee voice is very powerful. It costs very, very little, but it has a significant impact. And it's a positive sum game. If I give you an opportunity to speak up, it's a higher likelihood that you feel more committed or motivated. At the same time, I also benefit as a leader, as an organization, because I have worked, employees who are highly committed, highly engaged in the organization as well. The reality is not many employees say that they actually have the opportunity to speak up. Even in a very advanced society like Australia, a lot of Australians are very blunt. They're very honest. They speak up whatever that they want to say. Okay, whereas in our society, it's a very collectivistic society. Probably need to think twice, 3 times, or 4 times, 5 times before we actually say something, because we don't want to hurt the other person's feeling. In Australia or in the United States or Germany, totally different. They speak up. But even then, when they look at them, studies after studies, a lot of them actually saying that there is no psychological safety in the workplace. If I speak up, there might be negative consequences on me. Therefore, I still have to think twice, 3 times, 4 times before I actually say my opinions. Okay, and that happens in the workplace as well. Now, the study here that I'm doing at the moment highlights the importance of not only trust, but also employee voice. There are different types of trust. Some of you are familiar with this. One is cognition-based trust. The other one is affective-based trust. Cognition-based trust is when you are unwell, you go to a doctor. Correct? No, you don't go to the doctor? You don't go to the doctor? No? Enggak? Jadi kemana kalau sakit? Okay, trust yourself. Okay, so you have the cognition-based trust of yourself. Okay, all right. But there are others who probably go to the doctor when they are unwell, right? You don't go to a salesperson when you are unwell, for example. That's cognition-based trust. There's also affective-based trust, when you actually trust the other person because of the relationship that you have built for so many years. You trust the other person. The other one is, I wanted to say, is about employee voice. There are different types of employee voice. There's employee voice when you actually speak up to talk about the opportunities, the new improvements in the workplace. This is what we call as promotive voice. There's also about prohibitive voice. Prohibitive voice, when you actually speak up about things that are not working in the workplace. Because if they're not working and you're not addressing this problem becomes bigger and even worse, and it's going to impact the whole organization, the whole team as well. So what we found from our study is that the leadership plays an important factor, but it only to the extent of the existence of trust, and both affective and cognition-based trust, as well as voice, particularly promotive voice. Only then leadership has an impact. So leadership is not like straight away a direct influence on something. They must be underpinned by trust and employee voice. Now, the final one that I want to talk about is this connection to foster a sense of belonging. Belonging is a human need. Belonging has a sense of power, a universal power to bring everybody together. The sense of belonging is very important. Now, in my my classrooms, we have this student cohort base where we work things together, we study together, we discuss things together. So everyone was really committed for the same goal. That's a sense of belonging. Okay, so yes, you're doing on your own things, but at the same time, there's a common goal. We want to make sure that our class is going to be the best class ever, and requires the work of everyone, not just one person, not just me, not just you, but everyone in the classroom to play a part as well. Now, the sense of belonging, though, is very difficult in the changing world of work because people are feeling lonely. There's a study here about burnout. When people think about burnout, the first thing that comes to the mind is about physical exhaustion. I'm tired, therefore I'm burnt out. What the authors here are saying is that burnout is not necessarily anything to do with physical exhaustion, but burnout is also to do with loneliness. When you are lonely, there's a high possibility of you to feel burnout. Significant correlation between burnout and loneliness. This is a study that I did as well. What we found in the workplace is that 50% of the employees actually feel lonely in their work, and 15% of them are feeling extremely lonely in their work. This is a very, very alarming statistics. A lot of people actually don't have the sense of connections with the workplace, with the team, with the organization. Now, loneliness has negative consequences there. If you look at the stats there, obesity, it reduces longevity, the time of you on planet Earth, by about 20%. Drinking reduces longevity by 30%. Smoking reduces longevity by 50%. Loneliness reduces longevity by 70%. It is the power of leaders. Leaders have the duty and responsibility to not only producing the KPIs, reaching the KPIs, but also connecting with the employees to make sure that they are not lonely, they don't feel isolated, they have the sense of belonging in the workplace. Now, and the final thing that I want to talk about very briefly is in terms of the artificial intelligence. The world of work now, we have a lot of gadgets around us. We have our phones. We have our computer systems that are so advanced. We have generative AI, ChatGPT, which makes it efficient, effective, convenient for us. I travel for, I don't know how many hours I travel from Melbourne to Singapore, Jakarta. I will be going to Semarang and probably tomorrow as well. I did not print out a single piece of paper. My ticket was an electronic ticket that I can find obviously in my email. And I did not print out my boarding pass as well. I can actually scan my boarding pass, right? The world of work has changed. It makes us convenient to actually travel, to live, to work, right? But this is a problem as well. The use of digital systems actually cause a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression. If you look at the comment at the bottom there, mental and physical problems could stem from tech-abated loneliness and social isolation. You focus too much on your gadgets. You forget about connecting with other people. Some could also come from people substituting tech-based experiences. Yeah, everything is about tech now. It's no more human in human connections. Now, this is a book here that I'm currently reading. It's an amazing, amazing book about the power of AI. AI is so universal right now. Everyone is using it, but AI cannot replace humans. AI does not have a soul. A machine does not think about humans or what it means to be a human. It does not care about humans. If you die today, AI does not worry about that. It cannot replace leadership. It cannot replace human values. Okay, so don't forget about that. There is always that soft skills, the leadership skills that you have to build, you have to improve over time. And this is just a final thing, just to summarize the importance of that humanizing work, the importance of leadership and the power of connection, connecting with your employees to help them find the purpose and meaning in their job, connecting with them to build trust, connecting with them to empower them and to foster employee voice, and finally connecting with them to create a sense of belonging. Okay. I hope that I find that insightful. I'm not sure whether I'm talking too fast, but I'm more than happy to hear from you if you have any questions or have a chat with you a little bit later on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have a big applause to Professor Yuli. Before we continue with Q&A, let me give a summarize just quite a bit about the things that has been discussed recently. Number one, it's a very interesting that pandemic provide a very tremendous pressures to employee, especially not only a young generation but existing employee as well, yeah, the professors, yeah, and only 21% of the employee engaged in the working community and in the workplace. So that will be very interesting. Issue on bad bosses uh, appears in the discussions that it seems like not only we needs to engage to our peers, but also how we engage our bosses as well. And just having a question with that, with the whether this one is happening in blue collar or white collar, we come up with that one letters. And today workings tends to have what do you call it? Work anywhere, any times, any place. Would there be any related to that one as well? So that will be another issues that we can discuss later on. Another things that connections become very important. So whenever you have a times engage in any workplace, a connection to your peers, connections to vision and missions, perhaps it is really required to ensure that you have a same strategy, same energy, same do some synchronizations with any things that happens in the workplace. So that would be interesting. Okay, I'm opening up the Q&A. Would there be any questions from here, from the lounge? Would there be any questions, guys? Raise your hand.
Any questions?
Any questions? Or is still shy, maybe? But anything? Let me have a what do you call it? A brief questions that relates to this
Yes.
one. So connections means that people are required to have a same level of understandings. So when they come to the workplace, like these young generations, they are still fresh graduate, do not know what is situation in the workplace, having the different cultures, having different skill, having different attitudes, perhaps how they can actually cope with this and new environments. I mean, connection become a very essential.
Yeah.
How you can do with
Yeah.
it?
I think that's a great question, and I addressed that somehow in my presentation. It requires the efforts and the desire from both sides of the party. So the employees, for example, when you are new, even if you are existing, you have been working in the company for so long, you need to come back and start to connect with others. So in our organization, for example, I initiated a sort of a Thursday meetup. So it's a formal, it's not compulsory for you to come, but it's an invitation for you to come and join us. So I think there must be a sort of a deliberate strategy to do that. And many of the young employees, the ones who are new, are actually very, very keen to actually come and participate because they know that, oh, my boss is going to be there, my peers are going to be there. I would like to be seen. I would like to be seen as somebody who contributes to the organization. I want to play a role in the organization. But if you don't have that sort of opportunity, you kind of like very invisible in a way. So we think of avenues as a leader as well. You think of avenues to bring people together. So it requires a sort of a two-way relationship from the employees as well as the bosses. Now, I also have a tactic of walking around and talking. So sometimes of the meeting is us walking around the Melbourne City Center and talking about issues, about problems, because some of the issues may be quite sensitive that he or she may not find it a little bit comfortable to actually share that, because it might involve a bigger picture in a way. So we actually had sort of a walking around and discussing about this. And this has been really fruitful, but it also requires the part and the commitment from the leaders as well to actually engage and wanting to spend time with employees to do that. Sometimes we are overwhelmed with a lot of things that happen around us. There's 1, 2, 3, banyak sekali yang you have to complete, and you forget, as I said earlier, sometimes you forget, not necessarily intentionally, unintentionally, you forget about the needs, the experiences of the feelings of the people who work with you or under you.
Okay. I think all you graduates now are intended to pursue a certifications, an example, because being able to achieve one certification will actually improve the skill. Not so that's all the new students when they come to the workplace do not have a feeling inferiors as compared with the existing employee there that become a little bit more superior as compared with them. So would there be any goods if the students takes a certifications to be able to level up with the existing employee? Would there be any good?
I think certifications are important. And we are all here for the pursuit of a paper. It's a degree, right? Some of you might probably continue on to do a master's. Some of you might probably continue on to do a PhD. It is good. But at the same time, it's the skills that you display when you interact with others that makes a difference. Yes, you might have a PhD, but if you do not have the skills to actually lead others, to inspire others, to actually work with others, then you are just one part of the organization. You cannot shine in a way. Now, a lot of perhaps the younger employees, I've talked to my younger colleagues as well, in terms of having what we call as imposter syndrome. So they're feeling a little bit inferior, like, I'm so new, I don't have experience, I don't know what to do, I'm feeling shy to actually speak up and things like that. You don't know what you don't know until you know it. You have to try and fight for it, fight for what you want. So it is very, in many organizations, it's very hard to navigate the politics. Even we have organizational politics as well, but you have your values, you have your vision, you understand the vision of the company. If you are able to do it, say yes. You don't know, if you can't say, oh, I don't know this, I don't know. There's a lot of people who say, I don't know, I'm not so confident in this. You don't know. You haven't really given it a try. How do you know that you don't know about this? Okay, so I think that's really important. It's a very changed sort of mindset. We talked about the importance of growth mindset. There is a difference of fixed mindset and growth mindset. Fixed mindset is like, okay, this is what I have been given. This is the limits to my abilities. But the growth mindset is, I've been given this. I can actually improve myself so that I can be better tomorrow. So I think that's very important in terms of overcoming that sort of a inferiority complex or the imposter syndrome as well. So I think it's the job of the leaders as well to encourage employees, give them the opportunities as well, because opportunities don't come knocking on you twice. So ensure that you have the available opportunities, but you yourself, as the younger generation, you need to build that sort of confidence and try out many different things. Don't actually give up before you actually start trying. I think that's really important.
Okay, that would be interesting. I have an experience myself when I get into a new environments. What I did is actually, can I have somebody? Can I help you? Or would I be offering help? Would it be any good as well?
Yes. So you are the person who is offering help, or you asking for help?
Yeah, I'm offering help because I know that I don't have sufficient knowledge. I don't have sufficient experience. I don't have
Yes.
sufficient, what do you call it, understanding about the tools
Yes.
and mechanisms. So I just want to help anything
Yes.
at that particular level. Then everybody happy if I around and having what do you call it, the support
Yes.
from somebody else. I think everybody happy with that.
Excellent. That's excellent. But in fact, I am, as I probably use this as an analogy here, our university is doing partnership with Adobe. So a lot of the assignments of students are no longer about reports and presentations. You're asking to build, Adobe, using the Adobe Cloud, social media kind of stuff, to actually highlight the skills that you can build through the assessments. I'm not good with that. I can honestly say that I'm not good with Adobe, but I am willing to learn. So I sit in the classroom together with my colleagues, learning about the same thing. So making sure that you are sort of vulnerable as well, as a leader, I think it's really important that you are not up there in the what we call as ivory tower, that you are actually part of the team. It's part of that, creating that sense of belonging that I think is really important.
Okay. Okay, come back to the room. Anybody want to have a questions, please? Shoot out. Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you.
My name is Eileen, from management, and like you said, that we have to try because we don't know if we can do it or not. But what if something that we try actually we cannot do that, and the others is kind of making fun of us because we can't do it? What should we do?
Okay. So there's something in the literature that it's called psychological safety. All right. So when you are actually probably, I'll come back to that. Now, in everything that we do, there are successes and there are failures. Not everything that we do is going to be successful. There are many things that are going to fail as well. And that's what makes us human. And I think understanding that failures and successes are what made us, I think is really important. And in an organization, as a leader, you need to create this culture of psychological safety so that when you fail, you are not being made fun of. When you fail, there is no other colleagues who say that, not very good here. I'm not going to pass on the job to him or her. There are always opportunities that you have to say yes. There are always opportunities for you to develop yourself. Maybe right now for you is something that you don't know how to do it, right? And you tried and you failed. That's fine. But maybe 3 years later, when you tried the same thing, it worked. So I think there's the timing also makes a difference. But I think the importance of the team members, not necessarily the leaders as well, the team members to create what we call a psychological safety is really important. Now, as I said earlier, we are human beings. We have successes, we have failures. I have my successes. I have also many, many failures. There are many other things that I do not know how to do and what to do. And I am probably one of the first few ones who say that I don't know how to do this, but I'm willing to give it a try. I'm willing to actually learn about it and fail. And that's okay. That's okay. Thank you.
Good.
Great.
Good questions. Yeah. Have a big applause.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Adeline. Okay. Anybody want to have a question again, please? Oh. Okay. Go ahead.
Halo Miss, aku mau tanya.
Ya.
Kalau misalnya kita punya karyawan buruk, itu
Ya.
yang salah kita karena leadership kita yang jelek atau gimana?
Kalau menurut dari banyak research, ya, itu kebanyakan salah leadershipnya. It's not, there are, as I said, the first one, if I look at the slide that I talked about earlier, quiet quitters, the first category are the people who are lazy, who are not committed. When my boss is not around, I can do whatever I want. And that's where performance management comes in. If you cannot handle that, if you are the boss and you know that your employees are not working to the best of their ability and you just let it off, that one bad apple is going to destroy the whole basket. Okay, so it's very important for the leaders to understand that there is a difference between those who are losing the passion and those who are pretty much lazy. And if I see that my employees are not committed because they are lazy, then I need to do something. That's why we have performance management. I need to find out what is the reason for you for not doing the task. I need to be there to guide them, to coach them, to give them the opportunity for them to change as well. If I'm not able to do that, that's a problem on me. So a lot of studies have highlighted when we have karyawan yang buruk, the fault of it lies on the leader. If you can turn around that culture, you have a fantastic workplace environment. Pretty much, I would say, pretty much the majority of your team or the organization will be highly committed. And that's a study that has shown there are people who might probably be quietly quitting, but there's a very small percentage of those direct reports are quietly quitting. The rest of them are actually willing to give more and more for the company, for the boss. So yes, it is majority of it is on the leader's fault. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Fantastic. There is a questions coming from Zoom. So please, do you want to directly say it directly? Layla, please go ahead, Layla. Can we switch to
Thank you, Zoom. We're just looking at the questions right now.
go to view, and then go to view, yes, and gallery, yes. Okay, Layla, please go ahead. You can turn on your microphones.
Okay.
Okay, please
Hello.
go ahead.
Hello. Hello. Is my voice okay?
Yeah.
Hello.
Okay, okay, that's okay now.
Okay. Okay. First of all, I want to say that the material and knowledge that you have conveyed is very, very extraordinary and related to our lives today. And
Excellent.
you, ma'am, you has mentioned a lot about anxiety, about burnout, about loneliness that experienced by teenagers like us, especially Gen Z, where nowadays everything is actually available, and everything is actually like we have no reason to complain constantly about our lives. So I mean, compared to your generations where everything is very, very like it's not even available all the time, you know. So my questions are, in your opinion, how can we reduce these feelings? And also, what is the role of leadership that can help in handling this kind of case? Thank you.
Thank you, Layla. So if I get your question correctly, you're saying that the younger generation, the Gen Z right now, are probably finding things, they have everything in their hands, right? Everything is provided for them in a way. Easier to access stuff. It was very easy to buy gadgets, for example, mobile phones and stuff like that. I saved 3 years to purchase my first mobile phone. That was many years ago. 3 years to purchase that. Yeah. So it's, I think, and now little, Gen Z would just queue up for the latest sort of trend. Like they never think twice about this. So I understand what you're saying, and I think what you are saying is that how do we motivate as leaders? How do we motivate this younger generation? Now I think creating that sort of the job that I said is very important in terms of having that sort of purpose and meaning in the things that you do. And this applies to the younger generation, and it also applies to the older generation. Everything that we do needs to have a higher purpose. And perhaps some of us are doing things, as I said earlier, some of us are doing things for the sake of doing things without that psychological attachment to the job, right? And I see this in the workplace as well, for the sake of just getting a salary. I have no connection to the place. I have no connection to my boss. I have no connection to my peers. I just want to get my salary at the end of the 2-week period. Now, the role of the leaders is to help change the mindset, to see, why are you here? What is the purpose of you being here? What would be your contribution as an individual, as a team member, as an organizational player? So that's sort of a reminder, constant reminder to the younger generation. It's really important to build this sort of purpose. I think that's a key, that's a power of leaders. So not only just creating the space, but also reminding them constantly of the purpose. I actually, I have conversations with my children, for example. My eldest is 21 years old. It's probably the same age as you. Now, I asked her, I often talk to her, why are you doing this? Tell me why you're doing this. I mean, there's nothing wrong. There's no right or wrong in things, right? But I would like to know, why are you doing the choice that you are taking? So there must be some logic the reasoning behind it. And when she explained to me, I realized that, she's actually, understanding why she is actually doing this. There's lots of people out there who are doing things for the sake of doing things without that sort of understanding what is the purpose of it. I think that's important for us as the leaders to ensure that higher purpose, the purpose and the meaning in the job is created in the workplace, particularly with the Gen Zs, where everything is available for them. Thank you, Leila.
Okay, thank you. Okay, does that answer the question? Okay, thank you, Leila. Yeah. So we have also questions coming from Zooms from Andy and Matthew. I think this is coming from business creation or maybe an entrepreneur. Andy requests, I have a question. I want to ask, what is the basic knowledge and how to be a good and true leaders? Even though I don't have leadership experience, I need advice. For example, that people who have leadership and motivations that can run the business properly. And Matthew actually requests having a question as well. I want to ask, what could we do as a leader on a daily basis to train ourselves to be able to lead and motivate the employee to work more efficiently?
Interesting. Okay. So the first one part is about what do I do? What do I have to learn to become a leader? Is there? Okay. So I think the very basic answer to that is treating others as what you would like to be treated. I think that's a fundamental question and answer. Now, there is a lot of, if you look at digital transformation or any change management, a lot of these initiatives actually fail. Study has shown that digital transformation, despite the benefits of digital transformation, 70% of digital transformation fails. And that's because the leaders have certain vision, certain expectations, certain wants and desires, but then it's not reflected or it's not conveyed to the middle managers, it's not conveyed to the lower level people. And these are the people who are actually doing the job, right? So there's a disconnect as well. Now, I think it's really important for the upper level leaders to, I use this term as I mentioned earlier about walking around as well. Walk the talk. So you talk to people, like having conversations with them, find out from them. You will be very surprised to know that a lot of them actually would like to open up to you and highlight, their desires, their wants, and their aspirations towards the greater future. Now, I had sort of an initiative probably a couple of months back where I had a speed dating. I don't know how they call it in Indonesian, a speed dating exercise with my team members. So they come to me for about 8 minutes or so. It's back-to-back sort of conversations where they can talk to me about anything, and I can share things about myself as well. So it's really about having that sort of informal catch-ups that, sometimes we're too busy with our work. We forgot about all these informal things. And I think coming back to, is it Matthew or is or Andy? It's about treating others as you would like to be treated, and as I said, as human beings, we would like to be respected. We would like to be taken care of. And you also need to respect others if you would like to be respected as well. So I think that's important. The second question, sorry, I'm forgetting
How
that.
you can actually lead and motivate the employee to work more efficiently.
Okay, so that's the answers of my presentations. It's about connecting to help them find the purpose and meaning as leaders, connecting to build trust. And as I said in the presentation, while we understand and realize that trust is important, trust is very fragile. In fact, the level of trust in many workplaces has dropped significantly. So we assume that trust happens in every relationship. It's actually not. So how do you build trust in the relationship? Not only in terms of cognition, in terms of building your competence, building your own skills as well, so that you can be seen as a competent leader, but also building that relational trust, the rational and relational trust, the cognitive-based trust and affective trust. Build the relationship with people. I still have very good relationships with my students. For example, I received an invitation to attend their marriage as well. So that's because the trust that you have built over a number of years. And, they find it easier to actually talk to you. So I think the answers are in the presentation that I've given. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Another questions coming from Felicia. I want to ask a question to Professor. Do you have any tips for interview or in case that we are applying to a certain organizations? And how can actually, there's another question, how can I actually find a nice place to work beforehand, before I enters, so I don't have a, what do you call it, a disappointment later on
Oh, okay.
inside? Would there be any, what do you call it, tips for this new employee, for the new employee?
Okay. Okay. So it's about tips of getting a job. So the interviewing skills. Now, I think it's interesting. Now, in the university, I'm not sure about in here, but maybe you can clarify with me. But in the university, when you try to apply for a job, even at the junior level, we have a system called a panel system of interviews, where you are interviewed not only by one person, but maybe about 5 persons, 5 people who are sitting right with you, and some of them they don't even smile at you. Okay, so it was a really formal kind of interview, and in that kind of situations, it can be quite intimidating, especially when you don't have, you're just coming up from college, from the university, for example. But the first question that people always ask, and perhaps the same in here as well, is why is it that you want to work for us? And that comes back to my point earlier about your purpose, your values that you can bring in to the organization. Who are you? Who are you in terms of your skills, your competencies, in terms of your values as well? You need to be able to convince the panel members within 5 minutes of that time. So if you're able to convince your panel members within 5 minutes, the rest of them is somehow, it's just questions, and go on with the stuff. So I think understanding who you are as a person, how you can contribute to the organization is very important. The other thing, when I look for a job, I look at the nowadays we have websites. Long time ago, we don't have websites. Okay, so you kind of like, I don't know what this company is all about. But nowadays, there is no reason for you not to find out about the company beforehand. Everything is there. There's annual reports. If you're applying for, a multinational company, the annual reports are available. There are lots of news articles about companies as well. They have their own websites. They have their social media. There's so much information out there, but you need to be able to know how I can contribute to the company and how are my values aligned with the company. The company always says these are the things that we value: respect, integrity, excellence, that stuff. So how are you able to demonstrate that you tick all the boxes to meet the values of the company? So it's important. So those are the tips to find out a little bit more about the company through all the available resources out there, and to also brush up on your interviewing skills. Be confident when you actually convey about you. Nobody else knows you except you.
Okay, that's really interesting. I just want to add a little bit more on the issue of how you can actually add your skills. Basically, any single program in BINUS universities will teach you 3 semesters for majors, your majors. But after that, you need to find what company I want to work for, and what type of a company, what is the value that is required in the company, and then find what is the minor that you can take, minor programs, or maybe free elective subjects that you can take. Any subject, you can actually take subject from 55 faculties in BINUS. So you can select which one that give the value most when you enter that particular company. So that's become more make sense for you to enter that particular company. Certification also another things that you can add to your value. So one of the day that you decide to enter that particular company, people are looking at you with the full of value. Is that what?
Yes, absolutely. That's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, there is a question from Raymond. I want to ask, it is acceptable for a choices that we can always press restart button in the professional world? What is restart button? Maybe what he means is actually would it be okay that I just stop in this company and then switch to the other company and renew my skill? Would they be wasting my time, or how do you think with that? I mean, restarting the button. in the
Restart
profession,
to move to a different organization or just
maybe,
a
yeah,
different,
things
okay,
like that, or just switch career, switch
switch careers.
skill. I think wasting time. I don't. How do
Yeah,
you think?
I think you need to focus on the things that you are good at. And when you are young, probably you explore different things. For my bachelor degree, I actually did computer science. I did not finish computer science. I actually moved to commerce, but that was the only degree that I wanted to do. So very much focus on the sort of technical aspect. But over time, I realized I'm not really good in computer science and in computer programming. I'm good in terms of having managing people, for example. So I learned about the management skills. I learned about marketing skills. So I did marketing things as well. Now, in terms of moving jobs to different places, I would not recommend moving jobs very frequently. And I think that's a danger with a lot of the youngsters. I'm bored in this place, I move on. And your resume might reflect that you actually job hopper, we call it. All right. So where is the sense of loyalty here? So if I were to recruit you, and if let's say you move from a different place, from a different city to another city, and the university, for example, or the organization pays for you to come from city A to city B, invest in you, and you within like 3 months off you go, and that is reflected in your CV. The next employer who probably will look at you, wow, this is fantastic, I would like to interview him or her. There is probably a possible doubt in the employer's mind as well. How long will this person going to stay in the company? So I think it's dangerous to move to different places very frequently as well. But having said that, I think it depends on the context as well. If let's say the organization is really toxic, right? Because a lot of it's not tolerable. We talked about the job design, right? It's not tolerable. You cannot tolerate the demands of the job, the demands of the bosses. There's a lot of huge time pressure on you, putting a lot of physical, mental exhaustion on you. You might probably need to think twice about your job. Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
So there is I think this will answer the question of Siti Romau. If the employee, new employee come over to the workplace and it seems like the environment doesn't support them, and then the ecosystem doesn't support him, and then the leader also not really having a good connection, should I quit or not?
Yeah. I think for me, I would probably give it a couple of, unless obviously, there are no other things that are affecting your decision. So for example, I moved from one university to the next because of family reasons. I stayed in the organization for about 2.5 years, and then I moved to the current organization because of family reasons. If let's say we discount the family reasons, and if you feel that, oh, I'm actually struggling with my job, you have a conversation, honest conversation with your bosses, and see if there is an opportunity for job rotation or job reclassification. So instead of doing, for example, I'm currently doing learning and teaching. If let's say I'm struggling with learning and teaching, I might probably talk to my boss. I cannot cope with this anymore. Is there any sort of assistance that you can provide me with to help me in terms of doing the best of my ability here? And for
You're saying job rotations?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So in this case, my dean would give me a academic director to actually support me because my workload is huge, right? So as a good leader, you need to think of ways of how to help the employees. And if you're not able to help that, perhaps you can think of ways to rotate the job. So again, if I cannot give Yuli academic director to help her, for example, I might probably give her another role as a program director or whatever it is. I need to think ways of creating opportunities for my employees. So I think that's really important. And I said that because of the role of the leaders to actually ensure that the environment exists for everyone.
Yeah, sounds good. Yes.
Oke, saya Rio Adams.
Ya.
Prof, saya mau bertanya
Ya.
perihal tentang keloyalitasan karyawan atau tim kita. Sebagaimana kita tahu, mungkin kita sebagai leader juga yang punya tujuan, namun yang kita juga harus yang saya terapkan untuk membangun sebuah loyalitas karyawan yang di mana perusahaan saya ialah salah satunya kita tahu tujuan mereka ke sini kerja di kita dan kita coba menggapai tujuan mereka atau membantu mencapai tujuan mereka. Itu cukup berhasil. Namun yang ingin saya tanyakan mungkin ada nggak in your opinion Prof catatan-catatan yang sangat penting yang harus ada untuk membangun loyalitas karyawan atau tim seperti itu. Mungkin jelaskan dengan bahasa Indonesia. Thank you.
Saya coba ya.
Oke.
Pak Hadi tolong bantu juga ya Pak.
It's okay. That's
Ya, ini soalnya kalau otaknya masih bahasa Inggris, kalau kadang-kadang jawab bahasa Indonesia agak ini. Ini di konsepnya English itu ada konsep namanya alignment. Alignment itu apa Pak?
penyelarasan.
Penyelarasan,
Oke.
alignment. Ya, ini penyelarasan ini kadang-kadang bentrok dari tujuannya, dari goalnya organization, top managers, sama goalnya employees. Kadang-kadang nggak connect. Saya bilang ini ada disconnection ya, misalignment. Nah, untuk membangun loyalitas, membangun alignment ini itu butuh connection, butuh waktu untuk membina relationship. Apa itu relationship?
Hubungan ya.
Hubungan
Hubungan
ya, sorry Pak, ya hubungan.
Openness ya.
Ya,
Kebukaan ya.
yeah. I think open and honest conversation is really important. And I think I find it probably a struggle even in collectivistic society. Yang tadi saya pernah bilang, kadang-kadang kita nggak enak mau ngomong. Kalau saya mau ngomong something yang misalnya kurang bagus di organization ini, kok nanti saya dicap jelek gitu. Jadi kayak ada perasaan nggak enak gitu. Nah kalau banyak di tempat lain di luar negeri itu biasanya perasaan nggak enak itu harus disingkirkan. Ini bukan untuk saya saja, ini untuk tim saya, ini juga untuk organisasi saya. Apa yang bisa saya buat untuk make sure saya punya goal sama saya punya organization punya goal bisa sama. Nah, ini butuh hubungan dengan the team leader with the manager as well. Open and honest conversation without negative consequences on you. Kalau saya ngomong tentang organisasi ini, so there's gimana itu jelasinnya Pak? Kalau if I speak up something, if I voice my concerns, I don't have that negative implications on me. So that sort of environment is important to build that sort of loyalty.
Ya, jadi bagaimana kita menerapkan satu keterbukaan yang semua orang akhirnya paham arah company kemana dan saya nggak ada yang ditutupi gitu ya. Dan yang penting lagi bagaimana mengenerate koneksi, kepercayaan dan keterbukaan lah. Bagaimana? I just remember one thing that is very important is if you become a leader, you need to practice about inverted pyramids. Means what? The higher the position is, you need to more supportive. Jadi makin tinggi tingkat derajat kepegawaian seseorang, dia harus makin membantu yang di bawah, bukan makin menyuruh. Karena kalau if you become a bosses, people get away from you. But if you try to help them to improve their performance, indirectly it will improve the whole team performance at the end. Yeah,
benar,
something
benar.
like that.
Yeah, benar. Yeah.
Gitu. Then we'll create connections, connectivity. Then the loyalty come from there. Jadi loyalty itu datang dari connecting antar kita karena kita saling percaya, saling membantu. Nah, saling membantu penting.
Membutuhkan.
Saling membutuhkan, gitu. Kita sukses karena dia sukses karena kita juga.
Benar,
gitu.
benar.
Nah,
Saling
itu.
membutuhkan.
Oke?
Thank you,
So
Pak.
thank you. Yeah, good questions.
Excellent.
We have another questions coming from Zoom. I have a questions. What are the first step for us as a leader in encourage our employee on work where they are already built, though there is already what do you call it, a habits of quitters? How actually we can improve the situation in the workplace when we found there is a lot of quitters as a leaders? How we can deal with that?
Okay. Okay. So I think in the sort of because of the pandemic, a lot of people were kind of disconnected from the workplace, right? So one of the things that we have done recently is to create this sort of deliberate strategy to bring people back on campus. It's not only just talking about staff members, but also about students. So students were probably quietly quitting as well. You know, this is study is just one part of their life. They also have their work. Many students in Australia undertake multiple jobs at a single point in time. They also study as well, and they have their, you know, family commitment and things like that. So they are very, very busy individuals. So there are also many students who are quietly quitting. So what we have done recently, so last week, we organized a session, something like this, where we invited industry guest speakers to come in to students and talk about a topic which is like the future of work. And in that topic, we purposely asked the students to reflect on their experiences that they have gone through during the pandemic and compare it to what they are feeling right now. So we had a very lively discussion during that time. But that was because we created an event for the students. And the same thing with the staff members as well. We created a session with the staff members to bring them out for lunch, to bring them out to have a morning tea session together, to have a coffee together, to have a ngobrol-ngobrol. Kalau di sini ya ngobrol-ngobrol, just to have a conversation. So I think and in that sense, once you have these events or sessions, people start to open up a little bit. A lot of my employees open up to tell us about what they have experienced in the past couple of months or in the past few years. And from there, from the informal conversations, then you realize that, oh, there needs to be something that I need to do here that probably I can't do it myself. I actually need to go up to the next level and see whether we can create or recreate another sort of a different culture in a way to bring people on board with the strategy. But without that sort of informal conversations, you don't know. Because people are, I think Bapak tadi bilang, kadang-kadang orang takut ngomong sama bos-bosnya. Ya, pintu terkunci, pintu tertutup, malu ngomong sama bosnya. Tapi kalau kita ada session begini untuk informal conversations, slowly, it takes time. Slowly and slowly, people are more willing to open up, and I think that's a move away from being isolated in a way.
Yeah, this is a question that relates to that particular issue. Hello, morning, Miss Professor. I want to have questions. I myself have anxiety and overthinking. Like in a class, I want to answer questions, but I'm too afraid. What are the things about me? I'm afraid that they saw me as an attention seeker or perhaps something else. I'm also afraid this will affect my future when I have my own employee. If I will not strict so that operational will distract. Is there any tips? I mean, seems like it's not really confidence persons to speak out. How we can what is the solution for this, Professor?
Okay, so confidence building, I think it's a challenge for everyone, not only just for you. I don't know who you are, but it's for everyone. There are, like, if let's say we are meeting Bapak Minister, I'm afraid as well. I'm probably not confident as well. Bapak juga mungkin nggak terlalu confident juga kan? Itu normal, itu nggak apa-apa, itu normal, ya. But how we can actually bring ourselves to have a conversation with that person, I think that's important. Confidence can be built. It requires time and your efforts as well to build that, but you need to take the first step. If kalau pikirannya cuma, aduh takut nggak mau ntar malu, ntar dipikir apa, then you will never try. right? You always need to take your first step. That's why when we are walking, we take our first step before we can move to the next place. So I think to answer your questions, it takes time for you. There are many people who are experiencing anxiety. Obviously, there are help in terms of anxiety, but do not overthink others. You are not owing your life to others. You are owing your life to yourself. Okay, so you need to answer to yourself that this is who I am. This is what I would like to do. This is what I aspire to be. I think that's really important in terms of
Yeah.
convincing yourself.
At the other way around, there is what they call a jargon called kepo. Kepingin tahu aja.
Bring it. Yeah.
So I think which one is better? I close myself or being a kepo, want to know better, even though that this is looks like very quote unquote is a little bit annoying for some people. But again, this anxious, no, not very anxious to know what's going on, very anxious to know what is this, what is that. Is that okay that I can do that?
Yeah. Kalau saya suruh saya silent atau saya suruh nanya, saya milih nanya. Saya milih saya mau dengar something supaya saya bisa belajar. Mungkin bukan dari orang itu. Kalau misalnya banyak orang, saya malu, saya bisa ngomong sama orang itu di lain waktu. Atau saya baca buku, atau ngomong sama orang lain. But I will never stop myself from learning. I think that's very important. Kepo itu ada batasnya juga ya. Mesti tahu di mana waktunya. This is kalau kita ada belajar emotional intelligence, there is something called self-awareness. You need to be aware as well in terms of your surrounding. There are certain things that nggak bisa ditanya di forum ini. Nanti bisa ngomong dengan orang lain di waktu yang lain. Tapi jangan sampai nggak nanya. Malu bertanya sesaat di jalan katanya kan.
Okay, this is two last questions. I want to ask from Willie about situation where an employee is experiencing mental health issue due to their background, but still performing their job. However, this employee occasionally cause issues with other colleagues, kind of like positions employee, things like that. So possibly due their mental health problem as well. How can this be addressed without getting involved in their family matters?
That's a very fantastic question. Now, as leaders, I think we often think ourselves as isolated. I need to make a decision on my own. But we also have to remember that there are support system for us as leaders. And if let's say you have an employee who has mental health conditions as well and who are challenging in the workplace, when you actually have a conversation with that person, let's say person A in this case, you can actually bring in HR person to come in and have a discussion. So it's not necessarily that you yourself have to talk to the individual A, but you can actually have the support system to help you to talk to the other person. Now, I think it's important for the other person to understand the impact, in this case, negative impact that he or she is causing the organization. Itu kan tadi saya bilang, you don't want one bad apple to destroy the whole basket. Ya, satu apple yang jelek itu bisa destroy, bisa merusak seluruh keranjangnya. Jadi kita nggak mau itu. Sebelum itu terjadi, apa yang harus kita lakukan sebagai leader? Nah, itu kita bisa bring in HR person to come in and talk to the person as well in terms of addressing this issue. Mental health conditions can be tackled. There are a lot of medications, a lot of support systems that actually help mental health patients. So the mental health individuals should not feel that they are alone as well, right? And we as leaders, as the HR person as well, need to provide that support systems for the mental health concerns individuals. And that's really important as well. So outlining the fact that you are not alone and outlining the fact that I'm not alone as the leader. So there are people who actually help both sides of the party.
Okay. Last question from the room. Is there anybody wanting for questions, please? Raise your hand. Gak ada lagi? Beneran nih? Okay, what is the last question is, here we go. Okay. So if a company do not provide with good support, yeah, sometimes the company is too busy handling themselves, yeah, because it's a very what do you call it, a very big company. Sometimes they do not have sufficient, what do you call it, enough times to handle all of small things, and they get used to it, the very routine activities, and you get involved in that particular routines. How you can actually stand out to show that you have a performance, to show it that you can do better because you're very innovative, very creative. How you can actually initiate this kind of what do you call it, initiations across that very, what do you call it, very high speed, operations company. How you can do that
Untuk the employees
for
or
the employee,
for
for
the
the employee.
employees? Okay. So in our sort of, if I can use the analogy of this our school, for example, in the school meetings and the school discussions, I always ask a question about any other business, any other business. And most of the time, people will voice some concerns. Oh, I would like to raise this issue because blah, 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 blah. And not only just talking about the issue, okay, you have an issue here, let's brainstorm some of the solutions to help you resolve that issue. Maybe because that issue is not only happening to you, it could happen to many people in the school as well. So I think providing that as a leader, providing that safe space for people to ask questions, for people to actually brainstorm some solutions together, I think that's really important. Now, Bapak bilang tadi untuk bagaimana bisa shine kalau saya ada idea. Nah, itu come back to that sort of environment that you need to create as a leader, right? That give them the opportunity to actually speak up, give them the autonomy to actually decide of what is best, because they are the ones who do the job. I cannot tell my colleague, this is how you teach your students. No, I trust that you will be able to do your best to teach your students in certain ways that you find it, it's you, it's your unique self. So I think having that sort of culture, I think is really important in terms of giving opportunities for people to be innovative, to be creative. And I've done a lot of research in terms of innovative work design, looking at the job design, the tasks, whether it's stimulating, the one that I talked about earlier, and the trust and the employee voice as well.
Okay, wonderful. Let's have a big applause to Professor Yulisano. I think that's a wrap up of this our final discussion. It's a very fruitful. Thank you, Professor, for coming. I return back the sessions to Ibu Ana.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Hardy and Prof. Ruli once again. So guys, we will share the checkout link. So please scan this link. Yeah, in order for you to make sure that you will get your SAT point. Also, the online participants, please scan the QR code to check out. And then, Prof. Yuli, some students asked for your presentation material. May we share to the Zoom? Okay, thank you, Prof. Okay, the presentation material will be shared after this. And after you guys have done your checkout registration, we will have a photo session together, all together. Maybe we can, yeah, that's right, Pak Hardy and Prof. Yuli, please stand right here in the middle, and we all will be sit down. Yeah, facing that side, yes. Okay, guys, sambil absen boleh sambil lihat ke depan ya. Yeah, using handphone, please. One more time. Okay, thank you. Please give round of applause once again to Prof. Yuli and Pak Hardi. Thank you. So this is the end of our session for today. After you have already registered your checkout to the link, you may leave this room, please. And thank you for attending this session. See you on another event.
Ada tambahan pembayaran yang ada ya, cuman kalian harus jamin biaya kesananya sama biaya tinggal di sana. Yang lainnya bayarannya rutin sama. Yang lainnya bayarannya rutin sama. Jadi kalau mau study abroad ke RMIT, nanti kalian mulai siap-siap di semester 5. Ya, kalau kalian udah semester 5 siap-siap tuh. Sebelum habis semester 5-nya cepet tanya ke international office dan pastiin ada kuota di sana, cepet daftar. Cepet habis ya. Saya nggak tahu tiap kampus beda-beda tuh. Solbridge ada, RMIT ada, Macquarie ada, Queensland dan so on ya. Kita punya 300 lebih universitas yang kalian bisa datang. Jadi semester 5 cepet cek di international office, persiapannya apa, paspor apa segala macam. Nah, bayarnya tetap bayar rutin tiap semester. Sama, bayarnya rutin tiap semester, ada BP3, ada bayaran kuliah 4 mata kuliah itu sama persis. Nanti begitu kalian dapat seatnya cepat-cepat kontak Prof. Iya, bisa. Jadi ketemu di sana ya. Melbourne is very nice place. I've been there 4 season in the city. Jadi kalau pagi panas, siang hujan dikit, malam dingin banget. Pagi udah beda lagi, tapi it's very nice place. Saint Kilda Road also very nice. Yeah. Oh yes. Okay, good luck. Have a big applause to Professor Yuli. Thank you guys.
Enak. Terima kasih ya Pak. USB-nya sama saya ya? Tadi oh, udah dibalikin ya? Oh, oke. Iya, iya. Ada PowerPoint-nya di sana atau saya mau kasih PDF-nya atau gimana? Tadi. Oke, oke. Ya. Thank you.
Nyampe tadi 4 kilo ya. Harga Pak Ardi. Wow, udah. Oh, itu yang Pak Sigurnya. Tapi ini lagi kita. Ya, yang belum ada justru dari kan dari atas ya. Kalau penting kok. Kan yang yang apa arahannya ada satu atau dua yang beda lah. Sedikit yang supaya di negaranya ada keunikan. Kalau yang di Semarang itu kreatif.
Tadi waktu
Iya, itu
salah saya QR. Saya nggak nyadar kalau itu QR buat ya udah coba aja nih ya nanti coba di scan aja.
kalau yang sepeda misalnya intinya lebih ke yang human oriented. Otaknya
Ya.
di sana kalau di sini
Ya.
kalau di sana app-nya yang ya yoga ya makanya tidak harus berbeda dari sisi konten. Saya bedain Malang sama Bandung. Iya, kalau di Bandung industri kreatif 16, Malang teknokular sama resource historia. Beda. Kalau mau belajar resource harus ke Malang. Bagusnya mungkin orientasi kebijakan bagi kampus ya. Jadi kita bahkan seperti bilang ada gitu ya. Ada alasan orang aja. Explore flu and visit ecosystem. Tapi harus kayak spreadingnya ada masuk juga gitu kan. Gimana nginep dari
Enggak lah, cuma begini doang. Sama terima jadi kan itu dari panitia ya.
Jadi, ya.